Australia has about 8 species of small native fish called hardyhead, which are critical to the life and health of our rivers and lakes. Probably the most threatened is the Murray hardyhead. This fish has managed to escape extinction during the recent drought due to the efforts of La Trobe University fish ecologist Ian Ellis and the National Murray Hardyhead Recovery Group.
As a small-bodied fish, they forage on zooplankton and small invertebrates, particularly mosquito larvae. So they help control those animals, and they're also a valuable food source for some larger fish that can survive in these saline environments, and particularly for some of the birds that migrate and often breed around these saline environments. So they're quite an important food source, particularly when they're abundant.
The fish live on the fringes of the floodplain in more saline environments, which were common throughout the Murray-Darling River system before European settlement.
In the late 1990s, there were probably around 8 or 9 known populations of Murray hardyhead surviving in Victoria alone, and probably another half a dozen in South Australia. It was known to be extinct in New South Wales, with only 3 remaining populations in Victoria and only a handful in South Australia. The extinction of each population causes a severe dent in the long-term viability of this species.
He says the species is in big trouble due to the recent extended drought and regulation for riverboat navigation and irrigation.
Prior to regulation, the river would flood every 3 or 4 years, and a lot of these outlying areas which contain Murray hardyhead would reconnect. The fish would be able to wash downstream or swim upstream and occupy new habitats. With the instigation of river regulation, we seem to have a lot of wetlands directly upstream of the weir system which remain too fresh because they're constantly full of fresh water, or wetlands downstream of the weirs have dried out due to drought or reduced water inflows.
Mr Ellis and his team at the Mildura Murray-Darling Freshwater Research Centre were contracted to salvage the fish from dwindling wetlands, including Lake Hawthorn, which has since dried up completely. They brought the fish to the Mildura campus laboratory and nurtured them back to health. Here the fish lay their eggs, suspended from sticky filaments on the fronds of artificial plants. After a few days, the eggs are transferred to a larval rearing tank, where they hatch and develop into adults.
In collaboration with the Victorian and South Australian governments, we've managed to salvage fish from 7 different locations, which are all the known locations in which the species still survives. And that's important because we can then maintain the genetic diversity of this species across its current range, which will really be beneficial for the long-term survival of the Murray hardyhead.
So far, around 300 fish have been released back into the wild in Victoria and South Australia. Additional wetlands are being investigated as potential new translocation sites for the Murray hardyhead.
To get them back to the status that they had prior to European occupation, we would need the system to flood quite regularly so that these isolated populations could be connected through floodwaters back to the river system, and the fish could spread then back out into hundreds of fringing wetlands along the Murray system. The research we've conducted on Murray hardyhead has probably served as a good example of how to better understand threatened species and the management required to both conserve these species and recover them. So down the track we're better equipped to conserve some of the other threatened species in the aquatic environment.
All of which, he says, is important, not just for the fish, but for local communities along the river, striving for long-term viability of their ecosystems, as well as for their tourism and agricultural industries.